Hello everyone, I am Michael Ruger. I am the managing partner of Greenbush Financial Group. Today the topic we're going to be covering is the qualified loan repayment option for excess 529 balances, which allows parents to make distributions from 529 accounts for their kids and apply them to any outstanding student loans that may be in the child's name. Now this is fairly new. In 2019 when the federal government passed the Secure Act, that's what allowed this new distribution option, but certain states have been slow to adopt and adhere to the federal rules. Like New York State is just allowing these for the first time in 2024. Up until this year, if you lived in New York, that was not an option for you. The great thing about this loan repayment strategy using the $529 is not only can it be applied towards the child or the beneficiary of that 529 account, but can also be applied to their siblings that might have outstanding student loans. But like anything, there are rules and limits associated with these special distributions, which we're going to cover today. The first thing we always advise individuals to do is to check whether or not their states actually allow these qualified student loan repayment distributions. As I mentioned in the intro, New York State just started allowing these as of September 2024. There are other states that still do not allow these. So if you take these distributions and your state said, no, we're not going to adhere to the federal rules, it could trigger adverse tax consequences and potentially penalties for making these distributions. But if your state does allow it, it can be a good use for these excess balances in the 529s because essentially the earnings can be withdrawn and you don't have to pay taxes and penalties on those earnings because it's considered a qualified distribution, applying that towards the student loans. The main limit that you have to be aware of for these special distributions from 529s is the $10,000 lifetime limit for these qualified loan repayment distributions from 529s. They look at it per borrower as the child has loans in their name, so it doesn't matter how many different 529 accounts, because they could have 3 or 4 529s where they're the beneficiary. It is a $10,000 lifetime limit, which means it's not annual, like, oh, I can do $10,000 a year. Once that $10,000 has been done and has been applied to student loans, no more distributions can be made from those 529s and they're considered qualified. It's also true of, let's say, the parents have a 529 for the child and the grandparents have a 529 for the child. If the parents distribute their $10,000 and apply it towards student loans, the grandparents are no longer allowed to take a qualified distribution and apply that towards that grandchild's student loan payments. If you have multiple children, and let's say one of your children is listed as a beneficiary on this 529, but there's siblings that also have student loan debt, the nice part about this special distribution is that account can be used $10,000 each for each of your children that have outstanding student loans. A common follow-up question we'll get is regarding Parent Plus loans. So sometimes parents will take out loans to pay for their kids' college, and the question is, can I do a $10,000 distribution myself to repay the Parent Plus loans? The answer is yes, you can. It just takes a little maneuvering. So sometimes parents will distribute $10,000 for the child as a borrower. They can pay their student loans for $10,000, and then the parent, as the owner of the account, can change themselves to the beneficiary. Now they are a new borrower that has its own $10,000 lifetime exclusion. They can distribute money and apply that $10,000 towards their Parent Plus outstanding balance. In general, most types of student loans will qualify for this special disbursement from a 529 in repayment, but there are some private student loans that may not qualify, and there's a whole list of criteria that those private loans have to satisfy in order to be eligible for this repayment and qualified distribution from a 529 account. The list is fairly long, which is why I'm not going to include it in this video, but if you Google private loan 529 qualified loan repayment distribution criteria, you should be able to find it. When borrowers have student loans, sometimes on their taxes, they're able to deduct the student loan interest. Now, these qualified distributions from 529 accounts may actually limit or completely eliminate the tax deduction that's available for that student loan interest. It's a little tricky because the elimination amount of the deduction is really based on the earnings portion of the distribution that was made from the 529 account and applied towards the student loan. So for 2024, the cap on the interest deduction for student loans is about $2,500. So the way this works is if you do, let's say, a $10,000 distribution from a 529 account and apply it towards a student loan, Part of that distribution may be your original contribution, and some of it may be earnings. So let's say $7,000 of it was your contribution and $3,000 of it were earnings. The earnings piece is the amount that counts against the tax deduction for the year. So in that example I just gave you, if you applied the $10,000 towards a student loan and $3,000 was technically earnings that ended up being tax-free and penalty-free because of this loan distribution, that's more than the $2,500 student loan tax deduction. You get no tax benefit for that student loan interest deduction. But let's say the earnings was only $1,000 of the $10,000. Then it's $2,500 less the $1,000 that you use from the student loan 529 distribution. You would still get $1,500 in student loan interest that you could deduct on your taxes. This qualified loan repayment option for excess balances in 529s is just one of the many new options that are available for excess balances in 529 accounts. One of the other new attractive options are the Roth transfer options, which allows you to move money directly from a 529 directly to a Roth IRA for the beneficiary of the account. There's actually a $35,000 lifetime limit, so you can put a good amount from these 529s in Roth IRA, which might trump using this money for these qualified loan repayments. So you got to weigh the two options. If you would like to learn more about those Roth 529 transfers to IRAs, I will put a link to our video in the description of this video below. I hope this information was helpful. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me at greenbushfinancial.com. Thank you.